Hello, my beautiful friends. I promised that I would do a video on Ogham, the ancient Irish writing system, and here is that video. I want to say before we get started, though, that I am not an expert in Ogham. I am not a linguist. I am an English professor, but I'm an Americanist, so I focus on American literature and British literature, but more American literature. But I'm not a linguist. So I just became very interested in Ogham because I'm interested in the Elder Futhark, and I like ancient writing systems. I'm a little bit Irish, I'm a little bit Scottish, so these two alphabets resonate with me. Ogham, which you can see is spelled out here, so it's not spelled the way that it sounds like most Gaelic words. So Ogham is just an ancient writing system, and it's important to remember that Ogham, like the Elder Futhark, they were created as alphabets. They weren't created as divination systems, although we use them today as divination systems and have for about 400 or 500 years. Ogham, and I'm going to link everything that I talk about. Everything is going to be linked below with some additional resources that will connect you to actual experts in Ogham so you can learn more if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But just for a functional understanding, if you follow the channel, you know that I wear a necklace that I got on the Isle of Iona, which is an island in the Inner Hebrides of Western Scotland. And this says, "Blessed be in Ogham." And so it's very exciting to have a necklace that has the Ogham alphabet on it. I have other things that have the Elder Futhark alphabet on it. And so, but I'm not an expert in Ogham. I do know that depending on what you read, it either is like it was used during the 4th to the 7th or 4th to the 8th or the 3rd to the 9th. In there, that's when it was used. And it was really used, the evidence that we have now, it exists in Ireland. There are other places where it exists in other countries, in Great Britain, other places, but the surviving artifacts are all stone. It is likely, like the Elder Futhark, that it was written on wood as well, but none of those artifacts survive to today. But the artifacts that we have are stone, and mostly they are memorials and grave markers, just like we have gravestones. So that's what has survived to today, which, if you think about it, 1,000 years from now, what's going to survive? Well, our paper copies aren't going to survive, but our tombstones will, right? Also think it's interesting. I went to a presentation here in Palmerton earlier this year, and it was a historian who looks at gravestones in Pennsylvania. And in this area, there were a lot of German settlers, and at this particular church where the lecture was held, that was a German church and a German cemetery. And you could see, like, the earliest graves, those tombstones are written in Old German. Then there was New German. Then there was English, but written in the German font. And then there was English written in the English font. And it was just interesting, his presentation about the progression of both the tombstones and being able to identify the grave stone maker. The markers were made by particular people who did that stone work. And so, we can assume that that's probably true everywhere, really, right? So I just find this sort of thing interesting. I find alphabets interesting. I love learning about the different Native American tribes here and the indigenous people of America. I like learning about ancient Spanish texts and things like that. So this is very interesting to me. But I identify with my Irish and my Celtic ancestry, both Irish, Scottish, and English. So it's important to know, too, I want to mention that the Druids and ancient Celts did not believe in writing things down because they believed that writing was sacred. That probably, and that's why it was an oral tradition. So writing came in, right about the time when invasion started happening. So some sources say that Ogham was a secret language so that the Celts could communicate with one another. I don't know if there's enough evidence to show that because what we have in evidence are these stone markers that signify graves. So I don't know where that comes from, and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole that much. Like I said, I'm not a linguist, and I'm interested in it, but not to that degree. So what I like to do, and I do this with my students, and I've done this with Girl Scouts, and you can do this at home. If you take a piece of paper, see if I have one here. Oh. If you take a piece of paper and you fold it in half, the hamburger, no, this is the hot dog way. Remember, I'm not an arts and craftsy person. The way that Ogham is written, hopefully you can see this, it's written from the bottom to the top, and it's written across the edge of the stone. And so when you see written Ogham, there's always a line down the middle, depending on if you're reading it up and down or if you're reading it sideways. There's always a line in the middle. That line represents this crease. So when you read it, you're reading it from the bottom to the top and then over the top of the rock and down. And so that was one of the reasons they think it was a secret language, because you might not realize what those markings were. You would think that was nonsense. You wouldn't think it was an alphabet. So that's why it's written that way. And I'm going to show you in a second an example of one that still stands today. So what I like to do with my Girl Scouts and what I do with my students when I teach women authors is I have them write their name in the Ogham alphabet, starting at the bottom and then going up. And then you can really create really pretty, if you're an artist. I am not, as we've discussed so many times on this channel. I'm not artistic, but I do like writing like my name and things like peace, and you can write a sentence. You don't have a whole lot of room on the side of, so you want to be judicious about how long your statement is, but you can decorate them and make them pretty, add the tree of life, make really pretty artwork with your name in the middle. And you can do it up and down like this, or you can do it this way too. And you would read it you read it opposite to English. So we read left to right. You would read it from right to left. So if you do it this way, you start here and go that way. So that's just a fun thing you can do at home. Arts and craftsy people unite. So let's just look over, and like I said, all these resources will be available to you. And there are different understandings of Ogham. I only ever learned these 4. I never learned these additional symbols. So, really it's up to you how far you want to go into it, but I've learned this alphabet and not the additional things. And then this is just another example of how it's read. It starts here and goes up and over the rock. And then if you're writing it out, you see that straight line that goes through it? That represents the line, the edge of the rock. Here's an example of a stone that they have found that actually has both Ogham written on it and it has Latin written on it. So you can see the Ogham here going up the side and over. And then on both the front and back of this rock, there's also Latin. And pretty much it's a tribute to, what's it? Magicus, the son of the sun Quickus. I don't know how you say any of that. But again, like tombstones that we have today, that's really the ones that survive today are mostly memorials. Joe fought here. He was a great soldier. He was loved by his sons, Pete and Tom, and we will remember him forever. Amen. Or something like that. There aren't a lot of Ogham tributes to women, although there are maybe 1 or 2, but mostly to warriors, people who died, men who died in battle. So that's what Ogham is. I think it's a really awesome, fun system to learn. I think it's a great secret system to learn. Maybe the sisters, we could adopt this as our language and write notes to each other in Ogham. And like the Elder Futhark, it helps me to connect to my ancestors. I have Irish blood, I have Scottish blood, I have English blood, I have Pictish blood. So this helps me to just, connect with my ancestors. And sometimes I will put inscriptions on things and put it on my sacred space for my ancestors. I'll be doing that now during Imbolc, writing some messages to my ancestors in both Elder Futhark and in Ogham. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm wishing you all the very best in light and love. And again, all the resources, there'll be more resources than I talked about here. They'll be linked down below because, above all else, I am a professor and feel like I need to give you good information to go along with this very brief highlight. So people major in this and have like PhDs just in Ogham. So, like I gave you the 1 penny tour. So wishing you all the best in light and love. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.